You hear me?
Okay.
All right.
Hutch sits in an interrogation room, roughed up and bleeding. He pulls out a lighter and starts cauterizing a wound on his arm until one of the two officers across the table tells him he can't be doing that here. One officer asks who they are, especially since there's also a dog with him. Before this, Hutch has been shuffling between family life and his work as an assassin for hire, and the strain is showing. On Thursday, he misses a romantic dinner with Becca. On Friday morning, the house is chaotic and there is no space for him to connect. Becca tries to say something as she leaves for work, beginning with how summer is just around the corner, but Hutch cuts in, promising he'll plan something for the family. She seems content until he mentions he has just one assignment for the day, and then he could plan. Clearly frustrated, she waves him off and drives away. That day, Hutch reports to his boss, a man known as the Barber, with a card in hand. The job had been pitched as a simple grab, and Hutch agrees it started that way. In the elevator with his targets, he tried making small talk, but once the tension snapped, he had to fight his way through. He cornered the last man, terrified, and took the asset.
Straightforward snatch.
Yeah. Until the Corsicans showed up with Uzis.
He recalls stepping off the elevator into a room full of men armed with MP7s. He threw a tank their way, sparking an explosion. But as he explains, they weren't the only ones after the card. Outside in the parking lot, another group came at him, this time with machetes. The Barber is satisfied as the card checks out. Hutch, though, is reminded he's only chipped $80,000 off his debt and still owes around $30 million. His next assignment waits on the table, but Hutch hesitates before pushing the file back, deciding he doesn't want it. The Barber reminds him no one told him to burn the Russians' money, but when he did, it was the Barber who covered it. That means Hutch's debt now belongs to him. Keep working, the Barber says, and Hutch could be debt-free by spring. Instead, Hutch asks for a break. After a pause, the Barber wishes him good luck.
What do I need luck for?
You, take a break. This job is in your nature. And nature always wins.
The Barber and his men leave, but not before the Barber warns him that this life will always chase him. After roughing up the Brazilians, Hutch noticed a sticker on their vehicle and peeled it off with a fond smile. Back home, a commercial for a fun time with Wild Bill at Plumberville plays while his family watches. Sammy is instantly sold, though Brady remains unimpressed. Becca, on the other hand, worries if the place even still exists since the ad looks so old. Hutch reassures her that he already checked and everything is in order, and that their grandpa will be joining them too. They clearly need the getaway, especially since Hutch has missed too many of Brady's games and only now notices the boy sporting a bruised eye. For Hutch, Plumberville holds more than nostalgia. It's the one place he remembers visiting with his father and brother when he was a boy. Hutch tells them,
In life, when times get tough, you need to have happy memories to carry you through it. I just want to show you guys the place that made me happiest. Make some memories for you. Would you let me do that, please?
His little speech softens them, and they agree this could be an adventure. Everything starts well. They pick up Hutch's dad from his retirement home and set out on the long road to Plumberville. Just like he promised, the place is still there, a family getaway with an amusement park and nearby suites. Becca warms to the atmosphere and even leans into Hutch for a kiss until Sammy interrupts, reminding them it's time for the water park. But the water park is closed for 24 hours after an incident, so they're offered hot dog coupons instead. At the restaurant, Hutch slips into memories of his own childhood visits with his father and brother. In reality, his dazed stare has landed on a sheriff, who takes offense. Hutch apologizes, explaining himself, but the man still presses just to make his authority felt. His family watches nervously, hoping things don't escalate. The moment passes, Hutch reclaims his order to rejoin them, and the sheriff steps away. At the arcade, Hutch tries to get Brady to open up about the black eye, but Brady just wants to focus on the hoops he's sinking, although he does mention that he didn't get the black eye from an accident in the game. Becca calls Hutch over, and Hutch makes sure Brady knows they'll revisit the matter later. Brady racks up a pile of tickets and catches a group of girls staring his way. He offers the blonde his tickets before moving on with Sammy to pick out a prize. That's when a group of boys confronts him, their leader demanding an apology because he thinks Brady was hitting on his girl. Brady keeps his cool until the boy grabs Sammy's badger and rips it apart. Brady lashes out, landing a punch and twisting the boy's arm, sparking a fight just as Hutch notices too late. A staff member pushes Brady aside while Hutch snatches a ball before it hits him. The staff member and Hutch square off until Becca shouts that they're leaving. Brady insists he didn't start the fight while Sammy bends to pick up her torn gift, but Hutch tells her to leave it. As they exit, the staff member flicks Sammy on the head and Hutch sees it and hesitates, fighting the urge to react. Outside, Hutch says he left his phone and heads back in despite Becca's protests. He walks straight up to the staff member and punches him, then takes down another who tries to intervene. A third man jumps in to play hero, but Hutch grabs a toy hammer and smacks him over and over. When the first staffer gets back on his feet, Hutch tackles him again and slams his head into an arcade machine, shattering the glass. He then starts flicking the man's head hard, demanding how it feels to be on the receiving end. Becca rushes in to stop the fight, and soon after, they're at the station. She demands to know if they're being charged and why they're the only ones being detained when the fight had another side. In the hallway, father and son wait while she argues their case. Hutch reprimands Brady for getting physical, but Brady is stunned since Hutch just did the same. Hutch tells him again that he has to be better than him. Hutch gets called into the sheriff's office, where the man behind the desk asks,
"You know who I am?"
No, but while you're sitting behind the sheriff's desk, I'm guessing you're somebody.
The man introduces himself as Wyatt, father of the boy Brady fought, Max, and owner of Plumberville's theme park. He isn't pleased that Max's pitching arm got twisted. Hutch doesn't fold under the pressure, telling Wyatt that Brady will apologize, but they need to check the footage showing a staffer striking his daughter, which made him snap. Appealing to Wyatt as a father who might have reacted the same way, Hutch manages to get him to relent. Wyatt orders Hutch and his family to leave at once. It seems settled until Abel, the same officer from the diner who mistook Hutch's dazed stare for a challenge, tells the other deputy to rally the boys and get them out of town. Back in their suite, Becca scolds Hutch for not controlling his rage. They haven't even made it through the first day, and she believes Brady picked up his temper from him, something Hutch keeps putting on display for the boy to see. She notices a black bag he's been hiding and suspects he's brought work along, but when she checks, she finds wine from the place they first met, complete with the year. He tracked it down on eBay, waiting 6 weeks for delivery, meaning he'd planned the surprise for a while. Becca softens, apologizing for being so harsh. Later in bed, she admits she always knew he was dangerous because the first time she ever saw him, he was covered in blood. Their fun at the park resumes, with Becca shooting so well at her target that her kids take notice. They move through the ball pit, the Hall of Mirrors, and the carousel, while Grandpa spends time alone back at the lodge. Hutch spots an officer staking them out, and by the time he's buying tickets for the Duckboat, the men stream out of their car and approach. He gets his family onto the floating bus, which drifts off without him, leaving Becca confused. Hutch gives a flimsy excuse and slips away to another bus where Abel's men close in and surround him. They're about to beat him down when tourists and a guide climb aboard, forcing the men to pause. Hutch tries to defuse things, saying,
I'm here with my family, making memories.
They laugh it off, and one lunges as he explains it's all just a misunderstanding. A knife flashes, and Hutch snatches a life vest to defend himself. He tumbles one man off the boat, leaving him dangling over the edge, then slips between strikes to land punches of his own, all without the tourists or guide catching on. He manages to hurl a pole into the water, but the officer still has the blade. Hutch pleads for words instead of violence, but no one listens. The knife slices his pinky clean off, the finger skidding into the water for a hungry fish. In that moment of pain and distraction, Hutch is shoved overboard. The officer cheers his victory, only for another man to grumble that Abel undersold their target. This wasn't some ordinary tourist. Hutch hauls himself back up and unleashes brutal counterattacks, blood and fury driving every blow. When he reaches the officer, he seizes him by the collar and hammers punches down, growling through clenched teeth as he tells him to deliver a message to his boss that he's on vacation. Hutch uses a payphone to reach out to his brother, telling him Plumberville isn't how he remembers. David explains their father once took them there to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. He was running a mission while disguising it as a family vacation. The town's cops, he says, have long been corrupt and in league with major syndicates, and having someone like Hutch sniffing around might trigger them. Elsewhere, Wyatt oversees a large shipment as Abel arrives, offering to put more men on the ground. Wyatt doesn't take it kindly, snapping that there wouldn't be a need for extra men if Abel doesn't stir up trouble. He makes it clear who's in charge, then, almost to underline the point, orders the sheriff to keep watch over the shipment while he goes off to handle his fatherly duties. And Hutch has been gone long enough for Brady to start worrying and for Becca to announce that they'll go look for him. Meanwhile, Abel gets a call from one of his battered officers, who's on a 4-wheeler reporting that Hutch took them all down and even broke his teeth. Hutch in turn reaches out to the barber asking for help. He brings up Plumberville, and his boss knows it well, explaining that the place is a hub for drug trafficking and bootlegging, with a woman named Lendina at the center of it all. The barber pushes that Lendina is psychotic, known to do far worse than the Russian mafia, and being a disruption to their operation isn't such a bright idea. Lendina is locked in a poker game at the casino, but when she realizes her opponent cheated to win, she strikes first, driving a blade through his hand as he reaches for the pot. The dealer opens his mouth to protest, but she slashes his throat, then buries the knife into the player's eye for good measure. Rising without hesitation, she walks out of the casino and orders her men to make sure no witnesses are left alive. Meanwhile, the barber tells Hutch that it's best he de-escalates the situation and he's willing to give him a lead, but ultimately, Hutch is on his own. Lendina calls Wyatt, casually addressing him as a partner, but he makes it clear this is his last shipment. The debt his father left behind is finally paid. She cuts him off with a reminder that the grip she has is permanent, warning that his father died because distraction got the better of him, and she can sense the same weakness creeping into Wyatt now. She ends the call before he can say more. After the call, Lendina contacts Abel and tells him to keep Wyatt in line by taking something that matters to him. Hutch is still MIA, and Brady starts to wonder if he's in trouble. A knock at the door thickens the air, and Becca hesitates before opening it, only to find Grandpa David with a pile of junk for dinner. On his way to confront the problem, Hutch gives himself a quiet pep talk, reminding himself to stay calm, smooth, and not escalate. Inside the warehouse, Abel has Max held hostage, ready for his gathered goons to send Wyatt a message. Suddenly, they spot Hutch, pouring gasoline over a stack of cash meant for Lendina. With containers of explosives close by, it's clear that more than the money is about to go up in flames. Holding a lighter, Hutch lowers it slightly when Abel tries to posture. All he wants is a break, and for his family to be left alone. Abel insists things were running smoothly before Hutch arrived and that it's better if he just leaves. Hutch starts to walk away, but then Max tumbles out of a car, bound, and Abel orders his men to take care of him. The boy struggles and screams for help as they drag him off, leaving Hutch stunned by what he's just seen, yet still walking away. But he only makes it so far before he turns back, storms into the warehouse, and tears into the goons. Max cowers in the car, watching as Hutch fights with his fists and then with a rifle. The brawl nearly turns fatal when one man switches on a table saw, the blade screaming as he drags Hutch toward it. Hutch manages to grab a pole and drives it into the man's head before shoving him down onto the spinning saw, blood spraying across him in a gruesome finish. Shutting off the machine, Hutch snatches a gun, then pulls Max from the car and loosens his binds. Neither notices that one of the nearby containers of explosive material has begun to leak. Abel staggers back into view, trying to stop their escape, but his weapon is empty while Hutch's isn't. For a moment, it looks like Hutch will put a bullet in him, until he suddenly aims upward instead. The shot shatters the lights, sparks raining down onto the gasoline-soaked cash, which ignites in an instant. Abel stares, stunned, as Hutch and the boy slip away. By the time Abel reacts, the flames have already spread into the leaking barrels, and the blast swallows him just as Hutch drives off with Max. Word reaches Lendina that nothing could be salvaged. Money, men, even the biochemicals, all gone. Furious, she demands to know who this zealot is. CCTV caught Hutch's image, but no records surface on him. What they do uncover is that he has a family, and Lendina can't fathom that her entire shipment was destroyed by a tourist vacationing with his wife and kids. Abel survives, though badly burned. He calls Lendina, telling her Hutch's family is still lodged in Plumberville and urging her to send as many men as possible to handle him. But she decides she'll come herself. Hutch returns to the cabin with Max. Max and Brady put their differences aside with a handshake, and Hutch explains he still has things to take care of, so he won't be staying. David gestures toward Becca, who's simmering with frustration that Hutch broke his promise. Hutch admits he can't control the situations around them and insists it's best if she stays away from him. But Becca refuses, reminding him he's both a husband and a father, and it's his duty to fix what needs fixing. Wyatt is frantically trying to reach Max with no answer, panic creeping in. When Hutch steps into his lair, Wyatt lashes out in a drunken rage, swinging until Hutch dodges and knocks him down hard enough to make him stop. They end up at the table with drinks, and Hutch lays out everything that's gone down. Wyatt listens, grateful Hutch saved his son, then vents about Lendina. He calls her pure evil, a backstabber who's had the town under her grip for 2 generations, but he swears it's going to end with him and not pass on to his boy. Hutch nods as he can relate.
So what would she do if she found out you burned her stash?
You burned it.
Okay, what would she do?
Wyatt takes a moment to gather his thoughts. What he knows is that Lendina has had outbursts over far less, wiping out entire bloodlines in the process. He's certain she's already on her way to confront Hutch. Lendina is already on her way, arriving with a cavalry of men, while Wyatt leads Hutch down to his father's old arsenal. The late man had been preparing to take on the boss lady, but she got to him first, and the weapons have just been sitting there, with Wyatt unsure if they even still work. Hutch tests one and proves it still fires. The park is shut down, leaving only Hutch and Wyatt. When Hutch asks if he'll miss it, Wyatt says no, it's just an unnecessary responsibility lifted. After all, no kid really wants exactly what their father built. That's when Wyatt spots Harry, and Hutch is thrilled to see his brother has come to offer a hand. David joins too, helping them booby-trap the place. They rig grenades, stash weapons in strategic spots, and Hutch unleashes a wild animal into the grounds for good measure, even tucks a pistol inside an inflated tub. David then has a quiet moment with his boys. They recall being left to fend for themselves in the lodge while their father ran a mission. Hutch admits he sometimes wonders if their dad worried they'd end up like him, the same way he now worries about Brady. David puts an arm around his sons and says,
"You guys are improvements on me."
David scans with his binoculars as Lendina and her fleet roll in.
Stop!
He signals and Hutch gets moving. Cartouche studies the surveillance feed showing the targets at the park. He also spots the cabin in the woods where the family is believed to be. Lendina orders him to take men there to execute, no prisoners. At the cabin, Becca suddenly feels the pull to head out. Brady knows what's expected of him while his mother prepares to leave. Her eyes lock on a rifle. Abel confronts Wyatt and Hutch, declaring that he owns the town and will no longer be pushed around. But just as he turns, Lendina marks him as a thorn and orders his execution. Her men open fire, perforating him, then storm in. Wyatt strikes the high striker, triggering strings of bombs to detonate. Hutch swings the pirate ship ride, knocking out several attackers, then steps into the open to gun down more men. In the mirror maze, he taunts the assailants, forcing them to fire blindly before revealing a detonator and setting off a massive explosion. Wyatt leads some of the men toward the ball pit, where another explosion tears through them. The wild dog adds to the chaos, creating a distraction so Hutch can pick off more with his gun. Wyatt gets shot in the leg and limps to a corner. Two goons move in on him, but canoes rigged with sharp objects swing down from the side and above when one trips a hidden wire. Hutch keeps up the assault, funneling men down the water slide straight into a spiked trap. From a vantage point, David covers him, rolling a machine gun like lottery tickets. Still, there are a lot more men to deal with, and Hutch is tiring out, calling out to his dad, who is suddenly missing. Meanwhile, Cartouche and his men arrive in the woods, the cabin nearby, ready to execute orders. But Harry is already stationed there, cutting down attackers with his katana while booby traps help thin the ranks. When the dust settles, only Cartouche and Harry remain, and Cartouche draws a sword, preparing for a deadly duel. One man breaks into the house, cornering Max and Sammy, prompting the boy to grab a butcher knife. Brady leaps onto the intruder, tackling him while shouting at Max to protect Sammy. Outside, Cartouche and Harry continue their duel, swords clashing violently. Cartouche growls,
"That's meant to challenge me. I took his head."
but Harry severs his sword and delivers a fatal strike, slicing Cartouche's head clean off. Indoors, Brady holds the intruder in a chokehold until he pleads for his life, at which point Brady releases him. Harry steps forward and reassures Brady that Hutch would be proud. Hutch helps Wyatt settle into a corner and arms him before heading off to find his father. He hears Lendina whistling and has a brief back and forth with her, but the moment is interrupted when two women swing in with ferocious energy, overwhelming Hutch. They beat him severely and Lendina signals them to finish him off. Wyatt shoots one attacker, then the other, as she rushes toward him. Lendina throws a blade that lodges in Wyatt's shoulder, then mounts Hutch to finish him herself. Suddenly, a tranquilizer dart strikes her, forcing her off Hutch. She hurls another blade, but Becca's second dart deflects it and strikes her in the eye. A last wave of gunmen arrives, and David steps up to trigger the final set of explosives. Hutch and Becca dive into a pool just as the entire place erupts in flames, with Lendina letting out a small, sinister grin before she and her men are consumed by the fire. The kids, their uncle, and Max watch the explosions from the steps of the cabin, Sammy wondering if her family out there will be okay. Harry is sure they are, calling it just another Mansell's vacation.
"We're not gonna ask again. Who are you guys?"
Hutch and Becca, along with the rescued dog from the park, are being questioned by agents. Their superior calls, and the agents are compelled to release the Mansells. The family eventually returns home. Hutch is glad they made it to Plumberville and returned home safe. They're gathered to watch a slideshow of photos from the trip, joined by Brady's girlfriend. The images capture moments of fun and laughter, as well as pictures of Wyatt and Max, now fully part of their circle of friends. Hutch sits back, shares a kiss with his wife, and smiles, finally enjoying a peaceful moment with his family. And that is how it ended. Keep watching for more. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.